Unit 3B Test, The Power of Language. Passage 1. The Inchcape Rock. By Robert Southey. The Ballad of the Inchcape Rock retells the legend of a treacherous reef in the North Sea, of the kind abbot who sought to protect sailors from the rocks, and of the rover who sought to sabotage the abbot's efforts for his own gain. No stir in the air, no stir in the sea. The ship was as still as she could be. Her sails from heaven received no motion. Her keel was steady in the ocean. Without either sign or sound of their shock, the waves flowed over the Inchcape Rock. So little they rose, so little they fell. They did not move the Inchcape bell. The good old abbot of Aberbrothock had placed that bell on the Inchcape Rock. On a buoy in the storm it floated and swung, and over the waves its warning rung. When the rock was hid by the surge's swell, the mariners heard the warning bell, and then they knew the perilous rock, and blessed the abbot of Aberbrothock. The sun in heaven was shining gay. All things were joyful on that day. The sea-birds screamed as they wheeled around, and there was joyance in their sound. The buoy of the Inchcape bell was seen, a darker spot on the ocean green. Sir Ralph the rover walked his deck, and he fixed his eye on the darker speck. He felt the cheering power of spring. It made him whistle, it made him sing. His heart was mirthful to excess, but the rover's mirth was wickedness. His eye was on the Inchcape float. Quoth he, "My men, put out the boat, and row me to the Inchcape Rock, and I'll plague the abbot of Aberbrothock." The boat is lowered, the boatmen row, and to the Inchcape Rock they go. Sir Ralph bent over from the boat, and he cut the bell from the Inchcape float. Down sank the bell, with a gurgling sound. The bubbles rose and burst around. Quoth Sir Ralph, "The next who comes to the rock won't bless the abbot of Aberbrothock." Sir Ralph the rover sailed away. He scoured the seas for many a day, and now, grown rich with plundered store, he steers his course for Scotland's shore. So thick a haze o'erspreads the sky, they cannot see the sun on high. The wind hath blown a gale all day, at evening it hath died away. On the deck the rover takes his stand, so dark it is they see no land. Quoth Sir Ralph, "It will be lighter soon, for there is the dawn of the rising moon." "Canst hear," said one, "the breakers roar? Methinks we should be near the shore. Now where we are I cannot tell, but I wish I could hear the Inchcape bell." They hear no sound, the swell is strong. Though the wind hath fallen, they drift along, till the vessel strikes with a shivering shock, full on the ledge of the Inchcape Rock. Sir Ralph the rover tore his hair. He cursed himself in his despair. The waves rush in on every side. The ship is sinking beneath the tide. Why is the word perilous used in this excerpt instead of risky, dangerous, or vulnerable? When the rock was hid by the surge's swell, the mariners heard the warning bell, and then they knew the perilous rock, and blessed the abbot of Aberbrothock. The word perilous has a negative connotation that indicates that it would be foolish. The word perilous has a positive connotation that implies that it is only somewhat unsafe. The word perilous has a stronger connotation to emphasize that there is a risk of death. The word perilous has a weak connotation to suggest that there is a degree of uncertainty. Based on the context of this stanza, what is the connotation of the word mirthful? He felt the cheering power of spring. It made him whistle, it made him sing. His heart was mirthful to excess, but the rover's mirth was wickedness. Racing with joy, full of merriment, giddy with unhealthy happiness, full of evil and daring. Based on the context of this stanza, what is the connotation of the word plague? His eye was on the Inchcape float. Quoth he, "My men, put out the boat, and row me to the Inchcape Rock, and I'll plague the abbot of Aberbrothock." Bring sickness, too. Curse. Torment. Advise. How does the imagery affect the mood of these stanzas? No stir in the air, no stir in the sea. The ship was as still as she could be. Her sails from heaven received no motion. Her keel was steady in the ocean. Without either sign or sound of their shock, the waves flowed over the Inchcape Rock. So little they rose, so little they fell. They did not move the Inchcape Bell. The stillness of the air and sea create a frightening mood. The steady keel and minimal waves create a tranquil mood. The sails from heaven create a respectful mood. The motionless Inchcape Bell creates an alarming mood. How does the imagery of the bell affect the mood of this stanza? Down sank the bell with a gurgling sound. The bubbles rose and burst around. Quoth Sir Ralph, the next who comes to the rock won't bless the abbot of Aberbrothock. The bell rings loudly in celebration, creating a cheerful mood. The bell sinks into the water with a gurgling sound, as if trying to sound one last warning. This creates an ominous mood. The bell serves as a symbol of the destruction Sir Ralph will do to the town. It creates a mood of despair. The bell endures, no matter what Sir Ralph tries to do. This creates a triumphant mood as good survives in spite of evil. Passage 2. From Innocents Abroad. By Mark Twain. Mark Twain's best-selling travel book documented his travels across Europe aboard the USS Quaker City in 1867. Chapter 12 records his 500-mile train ride through France. We have come 500 miles by rail, through the heart of France. What a bewitching land it is! What a garden! Surely the leagues of bright green lawns are swept and brushed and watered every day, and their grasses, trimmed by the barber. Surely the hedges are shaped and measured and their symmetry preserved by the most architectural of gardeners. Surely the long straight rows of stately poplars that divide the beautiful landscape like the squares of a checkerboard are set with line and plummet, and their uniform height determined with a spirit level. Surely the straight, smooth, pure white turnpikes are jackplaned and sandpapered every day. How else are these marvels of symmetry, cleanliness, and order attained? It is wonderful. There are no unsightly stone walls and never a fence of any kind. There is no dirt, no decay, no rubbish anywhere, nothing that even hints at untidiness, nothing that ever suggests neglect. All is orderly and beautiful, everything is charming to the eye. What is the author's purpose for writing this passage? A. To persuade readers to compare customs in France and America. B. To entertain readers about gardening. C. To inform readers of the French countryside. What does the symbol of the garden represent? A. A popular place filled with foreign tourists. B. An idyllic place of beauty and order. C. An untamed space with little development. How does the imagery in this excerpt affect the meaning? A. It makes the French countryside seem like a magical, unspoiled place. B. It proves that Twain is a reliable observer. C. It connects the French landscape with other landscapes on Earth. Passage 3. Excerpt from Clarence Darrow's closing argument in Illinois versus Nathan Leopold and Richard Loeb, August 22 to 25, 1924. In 1924, Nathan Leopold and Richard Loeb were convicted of killing a 14-year-old neighbor boy. Leopold and Loeb were in their late teens, came from wealthy families, and attended college. They wanted to commit the perfect crime. Attorney Clarence Darrow, a lifetime opponent of the death penalty, was their defense attorney. If these two boys die on the scaffold, which I can never even yet bring myself to imagine, if they do die on the scaffold, the details of this will be spread over the world. Every newspaper in the United States will carry a full account. Every newspaper of Chicago will be filled with the gruesome details. It will enter every home and every family. Will it make men better or make men worse? Would it harden the heart of man or would it soften it? How many men would be colder and crueler for it? Do I need to argue to your honor that cruelty only makes cruelty, that hatred only causes hatred, that if there is any way to soften this human heart, which is hard enough at its best, if there is any way to kill evil and hatred and all that goes with it, it is not through evil and hatred and cruelty, it is through charity and love and understanding? How does the use of charged language, such as hatred, love, cruelty, and charity, advance the speaker's purpose of convincing the judge to give a lighter sentence? A. It puts pressure on the judge to make the decision that is morally right. B. It shows that the speaker is an honorable person to whom the judge should pay attention. C. It suggests that even though the criminals did wrong, they are not evil at heart. Based on this excerpt, what is the speaker's viewpoint on the person who committed the crime? A. He is a good person underneath. B. He is brilliant but evil. C. He is mentally ill. How does the use of repetition in this excerpt advance the speaker's viewpoint? A. It underlines the idea that the boys were not thinking as adults when planning the crime. B. It creates mental pictures of the boys as innocent and harmless. C. It makes clear that the boys were not aware that their actions were criminal. Passage 4. Excerpt from Here is New York by E.B. White. There are roughly 3 New Yorks. There is, first, the New York of the man or woman who was born here, who takes the city for granted and accepts its size and its turbulence as natural and inevitable. Second, there is the New York of the commuter, the city that is devoured by locusts each day and spat out each night. Third, there is the New York of the person who was born somewhere else and came to New York in quest of something. Of these 3 trembling cities, the greatest is the last, the city of final destination, the city that is a goal. It is this third city that accounts for New York's high-strung disposition, its poetical deportment, its dedication to the arts, and its incomparable achievements. Commuters give the city its tidal restlessness, natives give it solidity and continuity, but settlers give it passion. And whether it is a farmer arriving from Italy to set up a small grocery store in a slum, or a young girl arriving from a small town in Mississippi to escape the indignity of being observed by her neighbors, or a boy arriving from the Corn Belt with a manuscript in his suitcase and a pain in his heart, it makes no difference. Each embraces New York with the intense excitement of first love. Each absorbs New York with the fresh yes of an adventurer. Each generates heat and light to dwarf the Consolidated Edison Company. The commuter is the queerest bird of all. The suburb he inhabits has no essential vitality of its own and is a mere roost where he comes at day's end to go to sleep. Except in rare cases, the man who lives in Mamaroneck or Little Neck or Teaneck, and works in New York, discovers nothing much about the city except the time of arrival and departure of trains and buses, and the path to a quick lunch. He is desk-bound, and has never, idly roaming in the gloaming, stumbled suddenly on Belvedere Tower in the park, see the ramparts rise sheer from the water of the pond, and the boys along the shore fishing for minnows, girls stretched out negligently on the shelves of the rocks. He has never come suddenly on anything at all in New York as a loiterer, because he has had no time between trains. He has fished in Manhattan's wallet and dug out coins, but has never listened to Manhattan's breathing, never awakened to its morning, never dropped off to sleep in its night. About 400,000 men and women come charging on to the island each weekday morning, out of the mouths of tubes and tunnels. Not many among them have ever spent a drowsy afternoon in the great rustling oaken silence of the reading room of the public library, with the book elevator, like an old water wheel, spewing out books onto the trays. They tend their furnaces in Westchester and in Jersey, but have never seen the furnaces of the Bowery, the fires that burn in oil drums on 0 winter nights. They may work in the financial district downtown and never see the extravagant plantings of Rockefeller Center, the daffodils and grape hyacinths and birches and the flags trimmed to the wind on a fine morning in spring. Or they may work in a midtown office and may let a whole year swing round without sighting Governor's Island from the sea wall. The commuter dies with tremendous mileage, to his credit, but he is no rover. His entrances and exits are more devious than those in a prairie dog village, and he calmly plays bridge while buried in the mud at the bottom of the East River. The Long Island Railroad alone carried 40 million commuters last year, but many of them were the same fellow retracing his steps. The terrain of New York is such that a resident sometimes travels farther, in the end, than a commuter. Irving Berlin's journey from Cherry Street in the Lower East Side to an apartment uptown was through an alley and was only 3 or 4 miles in length, but it was like going 3 times around the world. Reread this quotation from the passage. Each embraces New York with the intense excitement of first love, each absorbs New York with the fresh yes of an adventurer, each generates heat and light to dwarf the Consolidated Edison Company. How does the hyperbole toward those who choose to settle in New York City affect the mood of the essay? A. It expresses a romantic mood. B. It gives the essay an energetic mood. C. It shows an uneasy mood. Which quotation from the essay helps to create a hopeful tone in Here is New York? A. Irving Berlin's journey from the Lower East Side was like going 3 times around the world. B. It is this third city that accounts for New York's high-strung disposition, its poetical deportment, its dedication to the arts, and its incomparable achievements. C. A boy arriving from the Corn Belt with a manuscript in his suitcase and a pain in his heart. Read this sentence. He has fished in Manhattan's wallet and dug out coins, but has never listened to Manhattan's breathing, never awakened to its morning, never dropped off to sleep in its night. How does the personification in the words Manhattan's breathing affect the passage? A. It explains how noisy New York can be at night. B. It describes the crowded conditions that exist in the city. C. It creates the feeling that New York is a living being. Read this sentence from the passage. Second, there is the New York of the commuter, the city that is devoured by locusts each day and spat out each night. What is the effect of the author's choice of devoured rather than eaten in this sentence? A. It more closely represents the inundation, an overwhelming abundance of people, of commuters, coming to the city. B. It more clearly describes how commuters absorb the city when they come to work. C. It better suggests how insects look when they are eating. What does the word misspoke most likely mean in this sentence? Under cross-examination, the defendant admitted that he misspoke about where he was on the evening of the crime. A. The defendant forgot where he was. B. The defendant lied. C. The defendant made a grammatical error. What is the meaning of the oxymoron courageous retreat in this excerpt? The firefighters were stuck. They had given all they could to prevent the fire from spreading, but they were having little success. And the fire was closing in around them. To avoid possible casualties, the firefighters made a courageous retreat out of harm's way. A. Although the two words are opposites, together they convey the idea that the firefighters' decision to retreat is justified. B. Although the two words are opposites, together they convey the idea that the firefighters acted selfishly. C. Because the two words are opposites, together they emphasize the idea that the firefighters are cowards.